Hello, Israel. This is Danny Israel from Israel's Vineyard here for another lesson. And the name of this lesson is A Lion and Unruly Tongue. A Lion and Unruly Tongue. They say the tongue is one of the most dangerous muscle on your body. It can cause you to do destruction. It can cause you to bring peace. It can cause you to do all sorts of different things because of the tongue and the word that comes out your mouth. So we're gonna do a lesson here on this tongue and show some of the danger it causes and some of the good it can cause also. We're gonna do most of the reading from Proverbs, and if you look up the word proverb, it says stating a general truth or piece of advice. Stating a general truth or a piece of advice. So you got the book of Proverbs in the Bible. So if this is saying stating a general truth or a piece of advice, and this book is from Jesus' mouth, is telling you here that the book of Proverbs is advice from Jesus. It's advice from Jesus, and he in Proverbs, if you read Proverbs, he tell you a lot of things in Proverbs that could help, and he tell you a lot of things that you can avoid. And so we're going to be in Proverbs most of this lesson. I'm going to read the one scripture before we get into it. In Isaiah, it's going to be Isaiah 30 and 1. Isaiah 30 and 1. Isaiah 30 and 1. And it says, "Woe to the rebellious children, said the Lord." So this is Jesus. Jesus is saying, watch, look, you rebellious children. And then he says, that take counsel. So he says, they go and get advice. And you remember I said that the book of Proverbs is about advice. But over here he's saying these children, his children, Israel, they go and get advice. And then he says, but not of me. So they go and get advice, you're having some marriage issue. You're going to a friend who never even been married. And so the advice they give you, useless, because they don't even know what you're going through. Just about anything. When they need advice, they go to somebody. Look at that. They go to Dr. Phil, and get all these, advice that lead you astray. And then it says, and that cover with a covering. He's saying that cover with a covering, but not of my spirit. So he's saying that this advice they go and get, it's not from me. It's not my words. And then he says that they may add sin to sin. So he's saying because these people unwise who you go and get advice to, who's not in this word, the advice they give you, it make you sin more. Because for instance, you go and say, hey, you know what? Yeah, my boyfriend is cheating on me, or my boyfriend is doing this, he's doing that. Then you want to go out there and get revenge and do the same thing. So sin for sin. All right, so I want to read what the definition of lying say. It says a false statement made with deliberate intent to deceive. A false statement made with a deliberate intent to deceive. So that's what lying is to make us out, is to say something that is not true, to hurt somebody. That's what this is saying. And then unruly. It says unruly, disorderly and disruptive. Disorderly and disruptive. And so, sometimes in a store, or you know, you are at the supermarket, or you're somewhere, and you know, you notice Israel, you know, any little thing, they just unruly. You know, you say something to them, they want to cuss you out, or you know, they want to, it's just unruly and disorderly, you know. So anyway, we're gonna start the lesson out in 1 Peter 3:10. 1 Peter 3:10. And it says, For he that will love life, and see good days. So he's saying here, who would like to live long and see while they're living good things happening in their life. He says, let him refrain his tongue from evil. So that's Jesus giving you this is first advice. He said, you want to live long and you want to live good. He says to hold your tongue from evil. You know, hold your tongue from saying something that is wrong against, something false that is wrong against someone. And his lips that they speak no guile. And so he's saying, don't let your lips speak, get trickery and clever, and you know, you're trying to con someone. That's what that is saying. Next, we're gonna go into Proverb, and we're gonna start it in verse 15 and 1. Proverbs 15 and 1. And it reads, a soft answer turneth away wrath. It says a soft answer turneth away wrath. And so here he's saying, you know, if you speak to if you say a nice easy word to somebody, then it will not bring evil against you. You know, but grievous words stir up anger. So, like for instance, you know, said two people squaring off, you know, like they want to fight. And then you hear somebody out the crowd say, yeah, he cussed your mama. The next thing, fists and legs and everything start throwing. Because somebody said a grievous word that hurt the other person. So, that's what he's saying here. Verse 2. The tongue of the wise useth knowledge. Alright? So he's saying the tongue of somebody who is smart, somebody who thinks, uses that. He said you use that right. Somebody who knows that. But the mouth of fools poureth out foolishness. So he said, but the mouth of fools poureth out foolishness. What is foolish? It says a person lacking good sense or judgment, unwise. That's what a fool is. Somebody who lacketh judgment, unwise. Next we're going to go to verse 4. 15 and verse 4. It says a wholesome tongue is a tree of life. A wholesome tongue. What is wholesome? You know, that says wholesome good. Wholesome, you know. But the meaning says promoting good moral, clean. That's what wholesome is. So when you speak good, speak clean words. The tree of life. Let me go over to the tree of life and let me show you what this tree of life is. Revelation 22 and 2. It says, in the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river. This is talking about in the kingdom. It's talking about in Jesus' kingdom. It says, was there the tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruits, and yielded her fruits every month. So this tree of life, this is Jesus, is what he's talking about here. Yielded her fruits every month, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nation. And so that food is this word, and this word here, this word is the word that saves you. It heals you when you get this word and you get this word right. So this is the tree it was talking about here. Next, we're going to go to Proverbs 17 and verse 9. Proverbs 17 and verse 9. And it says, he that covereth a transgression seeketh love. So he said, he that covereth a transgression seeketh love. And so, seeketh love, but he that repeateth a matter separated very friends. So he says that if somebody gets into say something wrong to somebody and maybe hurt their feeling or whatever the case is, he said if they show love, then they could cover it, because if you come to me in a loving way, then I'm not gonna be upset, or I'm not gonna be mad at you. And then it says here, the rest of it says, but he that repeated a matter separate very friends. So if somebody said something bad, and said something bad about somebody, and you go and repeat that to a friend, you go and repeat it to the person that they said bad against, this person could don't want to speak to you anymore, because the lie that they told you, you come and bring it to them, and so they don't want to hear it, because nobody want to hear lie about them. Next, we're going to go into Matthew 15 and 11. Matthew 15 and 11. And it reads, not that which goeth into the mouth defileth a man. So he says here, that's Jesus saying, it's not what going to your mouth is what makes you rotten or spoiled. The rest of it says, but that which cometh out of the mouth, this defileth a man. And these is the lies, is what comes out. This is what makes spoil a man, because that word that come out your mouth is rotten. It's no good. It has no good intent. So that's what he's saying here, is what comes out is what defiles you. Next, we're going to go back to Proverb 21 and verse 23. Proverb 21 and verse 23. And it says, whoso keepeth his mouth and his tongue, keepeth his soul from trouble. So you hear, he said here, whoever control their mouth, whoever control the words and the tongue, it says he keeps himself out of trouble. He keeps himself from getting into something with somebody else, because he keep his mouth. Just like if you're in the club, and and somebody just says just something, it's just simple, it hurts your feeling a little bit, but they just say something silly. Next thing, you get in a fight. So that's what he's saying here. So he who watches his mouth and watch what he says, keep himself from getting into trouble. Next, we're gonna go Proverbs 26 and 20. Proverbs 26 and 20. It says, where no wood is, there the fire goeth out. Where no wood is, the fire goeth out. And this is speaking about your tongue still. It's speaking about what come out your mouth. So if you If say you started a fire for a barbecue or whatnot, the fire burns and they cook your food. But when you finish, you want the fire the fire gone. You put water or you put something on it, and then so the fire go up, the fire go out. So it's the same thing here. It's the same thing with your mouth. So you could start something with your mouth and cause some problem. But here he's saying so wherever, so if you hold your tongue and you don't spew any lies out of it, then nothing can happen because you didn't say anything to get yourself in trouble. And so let me finish it. It says, so where there is no talebearer, the strife ceaseth. So a tattletale, somebody who spread rumors, who spread lies, is what a talebearer is. So he says, if there's no talebearer, then there can't be any issues. There can't be no drama. There can't be no problem. So that's what that is saying here. Next, we're going to go to Psalms 34 and 13. Psalms 34 and 13. And it reads, it says, keep thy tongue from evil and thy lips from speaking guile. So what Jesus is saying here, he's saying use the one who is in control of your tongue. Use the one in control of what you say. So he's saying here, if you keep your mouth closed or your tongue from saying the wrong thing, then it keep you from getting into trouble. And so he says, if you keep your tongue, it keep you from speaking rumors and saying the wrong thing that you don't know. Next, we're gonna go into Psalms 141 and 3. Psalms 141 and 3. And it reads, set a watch, O Lord, before my mouth. Keep the doors of my lips. So here in Psalms, I believe this is David, and he's saying here, he also is putting out some advice, and he says, he asking the Lord to protect his mouth, from saying the wrong thing. So he's saying, so David here is telling the Lord to guard his mouth. He says, so he tell God to guard my mouth. Right? And then he says, before I speak any slanderous word or anything that is not right. So that's what David is saying here. So sometimes you may have to ask God the same thing. Pray to Jesus to guide your mouth from saying the wrong things. Next, we're going to Titus. Titus 3, 1 and 2. Titus 3, 1 and 2. And it reads, put them in mind to be subject to principalities and powers, to obey magistrate, to be ready to every good work. Verse 2, to speak evil of no man, so be not brawlers, but gentle, showing all meekness unto all men. So he say here, he said, don't speak evil of man. Don't say something bad about your brother. Don't say something bad about your brethren. He says, don't get no fight. He said, just he says, be gentle, showing mercy or showing respect to your fellow man. Next, we're gonna go back to Proverbs. We're gonna go into Proverbs 12 and verse 13. Proverbs 12 and verse 13. It says, the wicked is snared by the transgression of his lip. And so he says, the wicked is paid by the transgression of his lips. So, in other words, he's saying here, evildoers are trapped by their sinful talk. So, he says, by the sinful thing that come out their mouth, it traps them. That's what it says here. And then it says, but the just shall come out of trouble. But the person who speak the truth, the person who don't lie, there's the one who trouble will not come upon. Next, we're going to go into verse 17. Proverbs. So we still in chapter 12, verse 17. He says, he that speaketh truth showeth forth righteousness. So he said, he that speak the truth, he shows righteousness. And then he says, but a false witness deceit. Because that's what a false witness does. What he says is deceitful, it's not the truth. Next we're gonna go into verse 18. It says, there is that speaketh like the piercing of a sword. He said, there is that speaketh like the piercing of a sword. And then it says, but the tongue of the wise is healed. But the tongue of the wise is healed. All right, so I want to go down to verse 22. It says, lion lips are an abomination to the Lord, but they that deal truly are his delight. So he says that people who lie is abomination to him, is evil to him. But he says the people who delight in the truth, the people who speak the truth, is his. He says it makes him happy when you speak the truth. All right. All right. So now let's go into next scripture. We're going to go into Proverb 31 and 26. Proverb 31 and 26. And it says, she opened up her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. So, this righteous, when they speak, it comes from the law. It comes from the commandments. It comes from, thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not commit adultery. The law. And so, we're going to go to a woman in this Bible who, out of her mouth, saved her family from dying because she spoke the truth. And that we're gonna go into 1 Samuel 25. 1 Samuel and 25. First Samuel, and we're gonna go into chapter 25. And it's from 1 to 16, and it reads, and Samuel died, and all the Israelites were gathered together. And lamented him, and buried him in his house at Ramah, and David arose and went down to the wilderness of Paran. And there was a man in Maon whose possessions were in Carmel. And the man was very great, meaning he had a lot of money. He had a lot of riches. And he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. So he had all this possession, and he was shearing his sheep. Now the name of the man was Nabal. That's his name, Nabal. And the name of his wife is Abigail. So Abigail is this woman. And she was a woman of good understanding. So you hear, he said she was a woman of good understanding. And of a beautiful countenance. Right? So they're saying this woman here was wise. When she speak, The things that come out her mouth made sense. It wasn't nothing silly. It wasn't anything stupid. And even she was beautiful. Her consonant, her appearance was beautiful. Now, but hear what they say about the husband. It says, but the man was churlish and evil in his doing. So this woman was nice, but her husband, he was evil. Everything he did, he was evil in his doings. And then it says, and he was of the house of Caleb. And David heard in the wilderness that Nabal did shear his sheep. So when David was in the wilderness, he heard Nabal was there shearing his sheep. Verse 5, and David sent out 10 young men. And David said unto the young men, get you up to Carmel and go to Nabal and greet him in my name. So David was king. And so David says, tell his men to go over there and to tell him hello in my name, that I came and I said hello. Verse 6, and thus shall ye say to him that liveth in prosperity. So David said to tell him, he who live in good, who had it all. Peace be both to thee, and peace be to thine house, and peace be unto all that thou hast. So David tell them to go down there to this evil man to send a blessing and tell him, wish him well. That's what David is saying here. Verse 7, and now I have heard thou hast shearers. Now thy shepherd which were with us, we heard them not. So that's what David said. He said that that his shepherds, Nabal's shepherds, they were with them, and they heard them not. Neither was there aught missing unto them all while they were in Carmel. So David is saying here, while they were in Carmel, he protected Nabal's men and their sheep because they had plenty. So that means if he protected it, that means he must have had people there trying to steal the sheep or rob or whatever they was trying to do. Verse 8, and it says, ask the young men, and they will show thee, wherefore let the young men find favor in a good day. Give, I pray thee, whatsoever cometh to thine hand, unto thy servant and to thy son David. Verse 9, and when David's young men came, they spake to Nabal according to all those words in the name of David, and ceased. Verse 10, and Nabal answered David's servant and said, who is David? And so, after everything that David did for him, protecting his sheep and protecting his men, this evil man asking his servant, who is this guy David? Who is he? What have I to do with this dude? Just the same thing in this time. These people who have money and they think that they have think that they're better than someone, and so that's the same reaction they get, like who's you? Who's you? And so this is the same thing that happened here. And so and Nabal answered David's servant and said, who is David, and who is the son of Jesse? There be many servants nowadays that break away every man from his master. 11. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my flesh that I have killed for my shearers and give it unto men? So he's this guy, he's evil, saying that, who's this David? Should I give him some of my stuff? Why should I give him anything that I have? After David protected his men and stuff. So give unto men whom I know not whence they be. So he's saying, why should I give to somebody I don't even know? And verse 12, so David's young men turned their way and went again and came and told him all those saying. So they went back to David and tell him everything that Nabal said. Verse 13. And David said unto his men, gird ye and every man his sword. So after he threw this thing back in David's face, after what David did for his men and him, David was hot. So David tell him, get your sword, let's get ready, we going down there, we're gonna do some killing. And then it says, and they girded on every man his sword, and David also girded on his sword, and they went up after David about 400 men, and 200 abode by the stuff. So verse 14, but one of the young men told Abigail. So it's obvious that one of these young men knew that Abigail, she was a respectful woman, and she had wisdom. And so he know that David, the young man know that David was hot, and he was getting ready to go and kill his whole household. And so he went and tell Abigail before David got there. And so let me start it again, verse 14. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master, and he railed on them. So he telling Abigail that David sent them out to meet Nabal and greet him and everything, and so he was rude to him. He was evil, said evil to them. Verse 15. But the men were very good unto us. So that's what he's telling Abigail, that David men was good to them, and we were not hurt, neither miss we anything. So he's telling Abigail, yeah, when they was out there, they were protecting us, so we didn't lose a goat, we didn't lose anything. Neither miss we anything, as long as we were consent with them. So he says, as long as they was with them and the protection, we didn't lose nothing. When we were in the fields, verse 16, they were a wall unto us both by night and day. So he's saying it was like what does a wall do? A wall protects whatever is inside the wall. So he said there was a wall of protection with them, and this is 24/7 because they was with them all the time. All the while we were with them, keeping the sheep. Verse 17. Now therefore know and consider what thou wilt do. So he's asking Abigail. He said, hey, so what are you going to do? Because these men coming down here. For evil is determined against our master. So he's telling him that David coming to kill her husband, and against all his household, including you, Abigail, and me. For he is such a son of Belial that a man cannot speak to him. So that's what the servant says, you can't talk to this guy. You can't talk to your husband because this guy is of the devil. You can't speak to this guy. He doesn't listen to anything. Verse 18, then Abigail made haste. He said Abigail, she got up quickly and took 200 loaves and 200 bottles of wine and 5 sheep ready dressed. So that means the food was ready. She got everything together, and 5 measures of parched corn and 100 clusters of raisin and 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on asses. So she packed these donkeys and with all this food and everything, and she's getting ready to go and meet David. Verse 19, and she said unto her servant, go on before me. Behold, I come after you. But she told not her husband Nabal. So she tell him, go ahead, take them to David, intercept him. But she says, don't tell the husband, because he was an idiot. He was an evil guy. Verse 20, and it was so, as she rode on the ass, that she came down by the covert of the hill. And behold, David and his men came down against her, and she met them. So she met David before he came up the hill, came up towards where they were. And then it says, 21, now David had said, surely in vain have I kept all that this fellow had in the wilderness. So David is telling Abigail that when his men and his flocks and all that he had were in the wilderness, that he gave them protection. That's what David is telling Abigail. So that nothing was missed of all that pertained unto him, and he had requited me evil for good. So David is saying, for all the good that he did for Nabal and his men while he was in the thing, he came out here and said something bad against me. Verse 22. So, and more also do God unto the enemies of David. So David is telling Abigail that the evil that he said to David, he's saying it to God, because David is God's chosen. So whatever evil he did to he said to David, he wasn't saying it to David, he was saying it to Jesus. So let's pick this up, and it says, if I leave of all that pertain to him by the morning light any that pisseth against the wall. So verse 23, and when Abigail saw David, she hasted and lighted off the ass, and fell before David on her face, and bowed herself to the ground. So after David told that, she got off the ass and she bowed herself to David, and then it says, and fell at his feet and said, upon me, my Lord, upon me let this iniquity be. So she's saying that this evil that my husband said, he said, no, let it be on me. I'll take responsibility for it. And let thine handmaid, I pray thee, speak in thine audience, and hear the words of thine handmaid. So she's saying, well, David, I want to say something. If you let me speak, listen to me. I want to say something. Verse 25. Let not my Lord, I pray thee, regard this man of Belial, even Nabal. For as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, thine handmaid, saw not the young men of my Lord, whom thou didst send. So she's saying, yeah, he speak this folly and nothing but nonsense come out of his mouth. But she's saying that I wasn't there when the men came your men came to bring the blessing that you brought to us, and said thanks. That you were saying thanks for everything and the blessing to go with us. That's what she say here. Verse 26. Now therefore, my Lord, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, seeing the Lord hath withholden thee from coming to shed blood, and from evening thyself with thine own hand, now let thine enemies and they that seek evil to my Lord be as Nabal. So she was saying, don't kill a husband, Verse 27, and now this blessing which thine handmaid had brought unto my Lord, let it even be given unto the young men that follow my Lord. So she's saying this blessing, this thanks and this pardon that she's bringing. She's saying, she's bringing unto David. Verse 28, I pray thee, forgive the trespass of thine handmaid. So she's asking for forgiveness. For the Lord will certainly make my Lord a sure house, because my Lord fighteth the battles of the Lord. So she's saying here that they fight that David fight the battle of his Lord, and evil had not been found in thee all thy days. So she's saying that there's no evil in David. 29. Yet a man is risen to pursue thee and to seek thy soul, but the soul of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of life with the Lord thy God. So she's saying here to put it in Jesus' hand. And the soul of thine enemies, them shall be sling out as out of the middle of a sling. Verse 30. And it shall come to pass, when the Lord shall have done to my Lord according to all the good that he had spoken concerning thee, and shall have appointed thee ruler over Israel. Verse 31. That this shall be no grief unto thee, no offense of heart unto my Lord, either that thou hast shed blood causeless, or that my Lord had avenged himself. But when the Lord shall have dealt well with my Lord, then remember thine handmaid. So he's saying here, when the Lord make him ruler and this over Israel, she's saying, remember her, to be easy with her, don't be bad to her. Verse 32, and David said to Abigail, blessed be the Lord God of Israel, which sent thee this day to meet me. So David is saying, thank the Lord for sending you to intercept me, because if you hadn't come, it would have been bloodshed. And then 33, and blessed be the advice, and blessed be thou. So David saying, he says, the advice that you gave is good advice. And then he says, which has kept me this day from coming to shed blood. So he's saying this advice and the wisdom that you spoke will keep me from shedding blood. So with that tongue, this is that soothing word that we spoke of in Proverbs. This is that soothing word. So that soothing word calmed David down, and so it turned him from shedding blood. And then continuing, and it says, from avenging myself with mine own hand. Verse 34, for in very deeds as the Lord God of Israel liveth, which had kept me back from hurting thee, except thou had hasted and come to meet me, surely there had not been left unto Nabal by morning light any that pissed against the wall. So that's what he said here. He says, sure as the Lord liveth, which had keep him back from hurting thee. So he's saying it's the Lord that keep him from hurting them. He says, they had, and then he says, and come to meet me. So if she didn't come to meet him and spoke to him, he said, by morning, Nabal and his whole house would have been done. Verse 35, so David received of her hand that which she had brought him, and said unto her, go up in peace to thine house. So David tell her, go ahead in peace, because you did a good thing here. See, I have hearkened to thy voice. So David says, because I listened to what you said, and so I'm not going to bring judgment against you, and have accepted thy person. So he said he accepted her apology. Verse 36, and Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he held a feast. So she came to him, and when she came to him, he was keeping a party, a big party, like a feast unto a king. And Nabal's heart was merry within him. And so he's just like if you drink a little wine and you drink something, how it make you feel. That's how Nabal was. And so it made him merry, for he was very drunk. You hear? She said he was very drunk. Wherefore she told him nothing. So it didn't make sense telling him anything, because he was drunk. He wouldn't even listen. Wherefore she told him nothing, least or more, until the morning light. So he said in the morning, after he sobered up, that's when she went to him. Verse 37, but it came to pass in the morning, when the wine was gone out of Nabal, and his wife had told him these things, that his heart died within him, and he became a stone. So after she told him what had almost befallen them, he says that his heart died, his mind, he couldn't even think. Verse 38, and it came to pass about 10 days after that the Lord smote Nabal, that he died. So as we read earlier, that David says what he was saying to David, he wasn't saying to him, he was saying it to Jesus, his Lord. And so who smite Nabal? Jesus did. So he smote him. And verse 39, and when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, blessed be the Lord that had pleaded the cause of my reproach. So he thanked God for taking care of what he would have done. And then he says, from the hand of Nabal, and had kept his servant from evil. So he said, if he had went and killed him, he said that what the Lord did, he kept him from evil. The Lord had returned the wickedness of Nabal upon his own head. And David sent and communed with Abigail. So David went and he went and he met up with Abigail to take her to him to wife. So David know that this woman here was a woman of good rapport, and she spoke right. So after he died, David went and took her to be his wife. Now we're gonna go over to 2 Samuel. So we're gonna read another story about somebody whose tongue got them in trouble. 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel, and we're going to start in verse 1. And it says, Now it came to pass after the death of Saul, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites, and David had abode 2 days in Ziklag. Verse 2, It came even to pass on the third day, that behold, a man came out of the camp from Saul with his clothes rent. So he's saying that a man, after Saul died, he said a man came out of the camp with his clothes all torn up, and the earth upon his head. And so it was when he came to David that he fell on the earth and did obedience. So he went down on his knees and bowed to David. Verse 3, And David said unto him, From whence comest thou? And he said unto him, Out of the camp of Israel, and I escaped. So he's saying that he came out of the camp of all this debt, and he had escaped. I want to go over to Job 1 and 6. I want to read something. Job 1, 6 and 7. Because he asked him, Whence comest thou? That's what he asked this man. Whence comest thou? So 6 and 7. That would be Job 1. And it says here, Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. So he's talking about the angels. The angels had came to a meeting that the Lord had. And then he says, And Satan came also among them, because Satan was the number one angel before. He used to be there when they had the meeting. Verse 7, and then this is Jesus asking him. And the Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? So this is the same thing that David asked this man, and he said, Whence comest thou? And so now we know who's behind the lie that this man told. It says, Then Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. Now back over to 1 Samuel. And so verse 4, And David said unto him, How went the matter? So David asked him, Well, so how was the fighting? How was the war? Tell me what happened. And he said unto him, Out of the camp of Israel am I escaped. So he's saying he escaped from the camp of Israel. And continuing, I pray thee, tell me. And he answered that the people are fled from the battle. So he's saying the people ran, from the battle. And many of the people are fallen. So he said fallen and dead. So a lot of people got killed. So that's why a lot of people flee. And Saul and Jonathan his son are dead. So he telling David that Saul and his son Jonathan is dead. And David said unto the young man that told him, How knowest thou that Saul and Jonathan his son be dead? So he asked him, how does he know that? Verse 6, And the young man that told him said, As I happened by chance upon Mount Gilboa, behold, Saul leaned upon his spear, and lo, the chariots and the horsemen follow hard after him. And so he's saying that David leaned against the sword. And when he looked behind him, he saw me, and called unto me, and I answered, Here I am. Here am I. Verse 8, And he said unto me, Who art thou? This is what Saul is asking him. And I answered him, and I am an Amalekite. And so remember, David came from killing a lot of these Amalekites. Verse 9. He said unto me again, stand. So that's what David tell him. Stand, I pray thee, upon me, and slay me. Because slay me upon me, for anguish is come upon me, because my life is yet whole in me. Verse 10. So I stood upon him and slew him. So the man said in verse 9, he said unto me again, stand, I pray thee, upon me. So he says this is what Saul said to him, to stand upon him and slay him. So I stood upon him and slew him. That's what he tell David, that he stood upon him and slew him, because I was sure that he could not live after that he was fallen. So he's saying after he had thrust himself on the sword and he was on the ground, he said that Saul asked him to kill him. And I took the crown. So after he killed him, he said, and I took the crown that was upon his head and the bracelet that was on his arm, and have brought them hither unto my Lord. So he said that, and because the crown and the bracelet is that signify that Saul was king, he said that he took that and brought it to David. It sounded like he brought it to David, thinking that David was going to give him some reward or something. But anyway, that's not exactly what he said. I'm just speculating. But verse 11, it says, then David took hold on his clothes and rent them. So David took his clothes and he ripped them. And likewise all the men that were with him. So that was a custom that they did in mourning. And then verse 12, and they mourned and wept and fasted until even for Saul and for Jonathan his son, and for the people of the Lord and for the house of Israel. And the reason why he's saying David said that, because Saul was king over the house of Israel. He was the leader of the people, because they were fallen by the sword. Verse 13, and David said unto the young man that told him, whence art thou? And he answered, I am the son of a stranger, an Amalekite. Verse 14, and David said unto him, how wast thou not afraid to stretch forth thine hand to destroy the Lord's anointed? Because if David and the Israelites were killing the Amalekites, David had asked him here, how come he wasn't afraid to put his hands out and kill the Lord's anointed? Verse 15, and David called one of the young men. So David called one of his soldiers and said, go near and fall upon him. And he smote him that he died. So David tell one of his soldiers to go and kill this guy. Verse 16, and David said unto him, thy blood be upon thy head. So that's the same thing. The Lord said your mouth is what caused what happened to you, because you lied. For thy mouth has testified against thee. So you see, testify against thee, talking about how he lied. I have slain the Lord's anointed. So he's saying that you lie, saying about you slain the Lord's anointed. Next, we're going to go back to Proverb 6. Proverb 6. Actually, let's go to Proverb 15. 15, 1 and 2. Proverb 15, 1 and 2. And it says, a soft answer turneth away wrath, but a grievous word store up anger. The tongue of the wise useth knowledge all right, but the mouth of fools poureth out foolishness. Next we're going to go to verse Proverbs 6. Proverbs 6. And we're going to go starting 16. It says, these 6 things do it the Lord hates. So he's saying these are 6 things that Jesus don't like. He hate them. He says, yea, 7 are an abomination unto him. He says 6 things. He says 6 things he hate, but 7 an abomination unto him. He says, verse 17, a proud look, right? As somebody who act like they're better than anybody. A proud look. A lying tongue. And hands that shed innocent blood. 18. A heart that deviseth wicked imagination. So this is people who are always thinking of evil to do against someone. Feet that swift and run into mischief. So he says this is people who always want to go and do something evil. People who always would like to go and do bad. And then it says, verse 18. Verse 19, a false witness that speaketh lies. And so there's somebody who carry who says things that is a lie. And he that soweth discord among brethren. And so he that soweth discord among brethren, he talking about people who are always stirring up trouble, saying things about people that it's false, or just saying things, that cause somebody else to do something to them. And then verse 7, it says, my son, keep thy father's commandment and forsake not the law of thy mother. Next, we're going to go down into Psalms 119. Psalms 119. Psalms 119. Psalms 119, and we're going to pick it up 171. 119, 171. And it says, my lips shall utter praise when thou hast taught me thy statutes. My lips shall utter praise when thou hast taught me thy statutes. It's 72. It says, my tongue shall speak of thy word, for all thy commandments are righteous. So, instead of that lying lip, this is what is supposed to be speaking, the truth, the word that's come from this Bible. We're going to go down to Psalms 52. Psalms 52. Psalms 52, and we're going to start 1. Verse 1. It says, why boastest thou thyself in mischief, O mighty man? The goodness of God endureth continually. Thy tongue deviseth mischief, like a sharp razor working deceitfulness. And so that's what word does. The lies and the deceit. Those words is like a sharp razor because it can cut. It says, verse 3, thou lovest evil more than good, and lying rather than to speak righteous. Selah. So that's what it says, that they prefer speaking lies. Verse 4, thou lovest all devouring words, O thou deceitful tongue. So he's saying, it loveth all devouring word. It loveth all that thing that consumes, that evil, that consumes. It says, verse 5, God shall likewise destroy thee forever. He shall take thee away and pluck thee out of thy dwelling place. So he says, you people who lie, he said he gonna get rid of you. He gonna take you from out of your dwelling place, which is your home, your house, where you live. And then he says, and root thee out of the land of the living. So what's the opposite of the land of the living? The land of the dead. So that's death. He said, you who lie, who got these lying lips and lying tongue, that's what you're gonna get, death. Verse 6, it says, the righteous also see and fear and shall laugh at him. So the person, the righteous person, the person who knows this Bible and speak the truth, he says he's going to laugh at him because he knows that this guy was a foolish man.